Hi everyone, and welcome to my research presentation about community. Now this essay that I wrote for this presentation will explore the different ways community shapes and influences the culture along the transborder areas. In doing so, I will look at three important subcategories of community and how they affect the transborder culture. These three subcategories include crime and poverty rates, the overall living environment, and how different it is for children and adults to be living in these areas. The essay also looks at different assets such as common beliefs and home life and explores their effect on transborder culture. I hope that the research obtained from this essay will give the reader a better understanding of both communities and culture within the transborder area and why you can't have one without the other. So the research questions I set out to answer were: what does community mean to Mexicans, and how does the interactions of race, culture, and gender impact community? And the objective of this essay is to explore and debunk some negative stereotypes that have grown with the Hispanic transborder communities, and hopefully gain a better understanding of the effects of community in both the United States and Mexico. My first research source comes from Carlos Velez and Josiah Heyman and the book U.S.-Mexico Transborder Region. Three things I found from this book were transborder colonies, or colonias as they're known, along the northern region of the border, such as Arizona, New Mexico, and California, have greatly increased in the past 20 years. It is estimated that 1 million people spread across 1,800 different colonias in various economic development and political activity. Also, the land purchased for these colonias is usually based on papers obtained from car purchases, with no collateral, monthly payments, or repossessions. The second source is a journal article by Lynn Stephen called Towards a Transborder Perspective, U.S.-Mexico Relations. Three things I found from this article were: the Mexican border communities were formed as a result of the U.S.-Mexican labor and immigration policies, as well as a long history of social, economic, and political integration. People living in transborder communities are mostly migrant workers, and therefore they are accustomed to living in multiple localities and having discontinuous social, economic, and cultural spaces. And the last one I found particularly interesting, and it says the transborder community of San Agustin Antigano in Oaxaca is spread across at least 13 locations in both the U.S. and Mexico, making it easily one of the largest transborder communities. And in closing, I'm going to break down the cultural impact of community of Mexicans by looking at the living environments, the crime poverty rates, and the difference between living in these communities as a child and as an adult. The living conditions in these areas are dire. Many people live in extreme poverty with no access to sewage or clean drinking water. Many of the children living in these areas do not obtain a high school education, and the teen pregnancy rate in these areas are one of the highest. Yet, crime and violence are surprisingly low in border areas. The FBI stated that in 2017 that the border countries had the less crime per capita than any counties that were not along the border. There's a lot that goes into shaping local culture, and by looking at these different assets of community, we're able to see the impact that community has on the overall culture of the area. I hope you found this educational, and thank you for your time.